Week 7 of the 10th season of the GBA is finally here, and Playmore takes on the Atlanta Victinis, one of the top teams in the league. And for the first time in a while, Tyler, we're away from the swamp. We're at their home stadium, and it's going to make things a little bit more interesting, especially considering the winning streak we've been on.
We might not be in the swamp, but there's still a croc on the other side that we've got to deal with in Skeledirge, who matches up pretty perfectly with our team. We can't bring the sun because the powerful fire type moves. It's got the Fairy Terra to deal with our biggest threats in Bubby and Roaring Moon too. It's going to be a tall task on the road today.
But nothing that Coach Ben can't handle, so let's get into the team he brought for this matchup.
Bubby, 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 praise thy Bubby. Oh, sorry. Team builder. Yeah, we can do the team builder. Let's get into that real quick. All right, first off, we have our Stealth Rocker and Ideal Skeledirge check Heatran. We're rocking a lot of special defense and a lot of speed this week. We want to be able to outspeed the Corviknight, the Skeledirge, the Abomasnow, the Kamala, all of it. So that speed helps us make sure we can pick up KOs with potential Magnastorm or Flash Cannon. Taunt makes sure we can avoid any unnecessary defog, screens, whatever it might be in the late game, and especially setup. Next up, to abuse those Stealth Rocks, we have one of our 3 pivots this week in Choice Band Roaring Moon. We're rocking the Adamant nature with this Choice Band for the most power with Terra Dark, so we're bringing Crunch and it's going to do a lot of damage. I'm talking 2-shotting defensive Corviknight. Then we have Dragon Claw for good overall spam, Ironhead for Terra Fairy Skeledirge and Gardevoir, and that U-turn for key momentum. To keep the momentum train going, we next up have our Kilowattrel. This is an amazing cleanup Pokemon for this week, and the fastest Pokemon in the matchup, which we always love here at Playmore. With Thunderbolt and Hurricane, we're able to do a lot of damage to their entire team, outside of the Dragalge and the Sandy Shocks. Our next pivot is Slitherwing with Assault Vest and max special defense to get the most out of it. We're rocking Flare Blitz, Brick Break, Earthquake, and U-turn. Flare Blitz is just good overall neutral for getting a decent amount of damage off. Brick Break can get rid of any potential screens between the likes of Gardevoir or Aurora Veil on Abomasnow. And then Earthquake is very nice for like the Dragalge and Sandy Shocks. To make sure we have all the speed in the matchup, we're also bringing Choice Scarf Glamora with Corrosion and Toxic. This lets us wear down their team, such as the Dragalge and the Corviknight, by getting off that amazing Toxic to really open up for some of the other Pokemon on the team. While we're also packing Sludge Wave, Power Gem, and Energy Ball, this is very key to help us bring down some of their faster, more annoying Pokemon just in case Kilowattrel's not able to support us. So this is a great check to the Tornadus Therian. Gets a lot of damage off an Urshifu Rapid Strike. Really solid Pokemon this week. And lastly, where would we be without our GOAT? Bubby has returned for back-to-back weeks to deal with these very offensive water types we've been facing. This is a max defensive Bubby with Ripen and the Citrus Berry. Ripen will give us the doubled effect of Citrus Berry, so that way we get 66% back every time we eat that berry whenever we're beneath 50%. Giga Drain, just make sure we stay healthy against the Urshifu. Dragon Tail, pivot us across their team, get more of those Stealth Urks off. Light Screen just really helps us versus Torn, Gardevoir, Skeledirge. He has a lot of very specially offensive Pokemon. And the most important part, the filling to the apple pie, is Recycle. To make sure that we get that Citrus Berry back over and over again. This way we can always check a banded Urshifu no matter what.
Thank you, Ben, for the great team analysis as always. I'm pretty excited to see what 6 the opponent brought. As Ben pregame was telling us, he was pretty confident in the 7 that could possibly be here. And he wasn't wrong in the slightest. Wow, okay. If you're able to call 6 of the 7 Pokemon that you think are going to be brought and not even consider some of the other ones, it should in theory make the team building process a little bit easier. But Tyler, the thing that worries me a little bit about this battle is a lot of the sets that, we were looking into seemed a little bit more defensive. Now, Roaring Moon is a problem for the opponent, but gotta get rid of Skeledirge. And then things like our Kilowattrel could clean up late game, but gotta get rid of Sandy Cheeks and the Dragalge. So it's gonna be interesting. If we can break through, I see the end game pretty clearly. But I don't know. We don't have a lot of breakers this week.
Well, it's a classic thing. Maybe it's not really a cliche, but you'll hear coaches say it in sports, is that the team needs to focus on themselves. And this is one of those weeks where, because you know what's on the other side so well, it's basically a guarantee of what they're going to bring, you don't really get that chance. And maybe there's a bit of hyper focus on, well, I know they're going to bring these 6 or 7, so let me game plan against that. Where maybe on the flip side, if there's a bit more mystery to what they might bring, you're able to focus more on that offensive side and bring a more attacking set. Because I'm with you, John. It seems like the team is very built on, which, is part of the game plan, countering what you might see on the other side. But we'll see how much offense can be brought from this group without just being, again, focused solely defensively on trying to resist what we're facing.
And I think the perfect blend of all of this is the lead with Slitherwing. Obviously, it is a lot more especially defensive this week to take on a bunch of different Pokemon on the opponent's side, but it's still pretty offensive. It can do a lot, and that is not the lead you want to see. This is a Pokemon that has been striking fear into people's hearts in both singles and doubles. I've actually not seen too much of it in the single space. This is going to be interesting. Now, I love Volt Turn, but against their team, they just have so many things that resist the U-turn. So it's nice to get that initiative, but not really going to be able to do a lot of damage here.
No, and immediately, again, it goes into a team that you bring is based off of being defensive on what you're facing. From turn one, it feels like we're stepping into maybe being a bit reactionary to what's on the other side and maybe a step behind.
No, and that's actually completely correct, and the incredible play on the opponent's part with that acrobatics. That would have obliterated Slitherwing. Also allows them to hit Bubby pretty easily. Really, really love that prep. And this is just a nightmare beginning for us. Well, maybe not nightmare. It's like it's a bad dream, right? I'm not
either way you want to wake up. We don't want to keep sleeping.
Exactly. Urshifu, really good speeds here against our team. Thankfully, Bubby does have Recycle and can deal with the Urshifu decently well. That's why Bubby is here, along with just being, Bubby, of course. But because we have to go for Recycle, it does allow Tornadus T to be brought in. And my biggest issue with Tornadus T this week, and every time I go against it, usually I like having it on my team so I don't have to think about this stuff. We can bring in the Kilowattrel, but it doesn't really matter a ton because Tornadus T is always going to switch out and get his Regenerator back. We only have so many switch-ins of this or maybe the Heatran before, they get whittled down, and Torn T is going to be really difficult for us to get rid of, I think, in this battle.
Regenerator is such a fascinating ability to me because it's one that when, I'm just normally playing through a game, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate, you don't really think about it. But when it comes to the competitive battles, it's so huge. And I know you've been big on it with teams that you've brought in the past. Just be able to switch out, switch back in, bang, more health.
Now, this is actually really, really interesting, as we know it's not Assault Vest Tornadus T, which, I like bringing. Instead, Nasty Plot. Now, we definitely outspeed this with the Kilowattrel. I'm not sure if we would be able to take this thing out with a hit, but if nothing else, this is the right play to force it out, gain some of that momentum back. Obviously, me and you did not love the start of this battle, but I feel like we're in a pretty good spot. Predict the switch. There's the U-turn. Bing, bang, boom. Now we're in a really, really good spot. We talked about how we weren't really on the offensive with a lot of the sets, but, I still really like the plan. We have things for all of the Pokemon on the other side. It's going to rely on our incredible coach being his incredible self and making plays just like that. And this is a pretty big one.
I wonder if I was wondering if we saw a bit of an aggressive switch because, like you said, Roaring Moon matches up well against this team with the exception of that Skeledirge. And when you've got a guaranteed chance to bring it in on something that is not Skeledirge, I like Ben taking it here.
Well, and the really big thing there is Skeledirge has not Terra'd into Fairy. So right now, that thing could not take a crunch if its life depended on it. So this is a really interesting moment for us. I don't know if Sandy Cheeks over there is going to be able to one-shot us. I wouldn't imagine so. But we do see the U-turn here, which is definitely... It's not my favorite thing. I would have loved to see a little wall breaking. So it is going to be interesting to know what we're trying to bring in. I would have really, really loved a bigger hit, but that's why I love Regenerator Pokemon so much myself.
That's the thing, and I wanted to say, that's a good hit. That did good damage, and then I realized you swap that thing out and back in, it's back to almost full HP.
Now, the really good thing about this play potentially is even if Tornadus T switches out, we get a free Toxic on anything on their roster because of the ability over here, which is really nice. And if we get the Toxic on the Tornadus T, it can't just sit in here and nasty plot up a Storm. It's got to be Toxic here. If you're not going to do the aggressive play with the Roaring Moon, it has to be Toxic here. I really, really love this play. I would have loved to see some of the calcs there. Was there a chance Roaring Moon takes out that, Torn T with an attack? I don't think so, but man, that would have been huge for us. I do really, really love getting the Toxic on this thing. I think Kilowattrel could absolutely win this game in the end, but as I said earlier, few Pokemon we got to get rid of first.
And now, again, an interesting position where we're going to have to see another switch. Figured, again, this is going to be the safe move, but the opponent already had... I'm interested to see what they do here, because they were very quick and knew exactly what they were going to do. I thought there might be some hesitation on their side.
Yeah. And there's the spikes, and this is actually a huge problem, Tyler. As
we don't have any removal, do we?
No, I'm really confident we don't. Our team is a little bit more on the defensive side, which absolutely works. So far things have been going really well, but if we're going to be on that back foot, switching a lot to get ourselves into the right, spot to hopefully gain some momentum, spikes can do a lot of damage, and we got to get rid of this thing. Now, our coach has not missed on a prediction yet, which is really, really nice. The thing that I absolutely hate is I don't think we're making any progress. It's really, really tough to see how this battle is unfolding, where I feel like Ben has played pretty perfectly, and I don't know if we've really made up any ground. Now, Torn T must have something he's worried about for that Roaring Moon, and I might have to do a little digging into things. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just a silly guy, because there's the Roaring Moon. Makes me a little bit more confused on that earlier U-turn instead of an attack. But I mean, at this point, does something just go down to a crunch? I feel like it might.
I mean, there's some tech on the other side that the Tornadus T could have. I don't think there's anything that overly worries you with this matchup. But I'm not going to doubt Ben, because we've seen multiple times in the past where we've wanted him to maybe be more aggressive, and it's been a bit more read and react for the early parts of the match, and he has not missed so far this season on when that opportunity presents itself. When the window finally opens, he's done a very good job of leaping right through it. So I'm going to hold back, and I'm going to assume that's what's happening here.
And he's made a lot of aggressive plays. Ooh, I think is that a... No, what is that move? I'm going to be honest. I don't know. It's a new move.
It can leave, or I think it can slow you. It has changed from what it was originally when it happened in Legends Arceus.
Yeah, it's that Legend Arceus move. Okay.
Because in Legends Arceus it was Frostbite, but in this game it can lower your speed.
This is actually the most important play of the match so far, as I was learning Pokemon. We really need to get rid of this Pokemon here. And it's unfortunate. I think this is the only misplay of the game so far from the Beneral. Like going for that U-turn. Like, you either go for the Thunderbolt predicting the Tornadus T to stay in, or I think you go for the U-turn. Here, you still get damage on this Pokemon, but another layer
confusion.
that is really huge, but another layer of spikes puts us in a really tough spot. I mean, we've already switched Roaring Moon out twice on the Tornadus T, which is not ideal. Worried about taking a hit, but now if there's two layers of spikes, I mean, Roaring Moon's going to be taking more and more damage every single time. At this point, I really think we need to get Stealth Rocks up so that Tornadus T is in a range where hopefully another Pokemon can take it out a little bit easier. I think that becomes a huge issue for us, as I think you have to go into... Buggy was made for this situation, but, the spikes are going to be an issue with Roaring Moon. Is now the opportunity to try to take out one of the Pokemon on the opponent's team? I don't know. It is a little interesting.
Well, again, it's tough because you know that the main Pokemon that we've been able to attack so far is Tornadus T, and every single hit has been regenerated.
Yep.
And so you've got Sandy Cheeks, as you say. Poison. This feels like the one Pokemon that you got an opportunity to attack. It'd be nice if it would hurt itself here. Instead, there's another layer of spikes like you talked about. And I think that even furthers the urgency to get a little bit more offensive because I think Kilowattrel is the only Pokemon we have that's not going to get hit by those spikes when they come in.
Yeah, and from the coach's reaction, I can tell he is none too pleased by this now. I've said it many times at this point. I'm a broken record. Kilowattrel and late game can do what we want it to do. And one of the Pokemon that's stopping it in its tracks is on its last leg. So that is really, really nice. Now, we've seen no Dragalge, but that's a pretty slow guy. Hey, I'm just a slow guy. You don't want to hurricane me on my birthday. That's what Dragalge says. So hopefully we can get rid of that thing. And hopefully here, did he click Flare Blitz?
This should do some damage.
This should do a lot of damage here. Now, it goes back to what you were saying, the old regenerator tricks.
Yeah.
Arg, me mateys.
Well, it's a different set here. We see the Assault Vest and not a Choice Band on Slitherwing. So Choice Band maybe puts that in range of a kill.
Yeah, no, Tornadus T is maybe my second favorite Pokemon in Draft League. You know, one of the big reasons Wolfie and me had such a great rivalry is we kept trying to draft the same teams. We always wanted Torn T on our teams. It was really fun when I lost to him after missing 3 Hurricanes and then a Power Whip in a row. That was very, very swell. But that's not an issue anymore with this Bleak Wind Storm because, yeah, we're coming up with new moves and Legends Arceus. Yeah, that's cool, Pokemon. Sure. Yeah, okay. Very cool. But wait a second. I really, really like seeing Dragalge here. If we can get rid of this thing, I will be a happy, happy guy. Now, this is the issue. My pal over here, the bird, Squawkity Squawk, is not going to be doing diddly squats to
That's a really nice way to put it.
Yes. Now, we do have the Heatran that can be switched in. I do feel like Dragalge does have like Hydro Pump and other moves of the sort. Obviously won't get the adaptability boost, but I don't know. I don't know if this is the right time to bring that in to try to get rocks up.
Yeah, I think given the 2 layers of spikes, you might have to force the issue just to try and get those stealth rocks up because they feel almost essential right now to counter that.
Yeah, I really think Ben has played a pretty flawless game up until this point. The only thing that's worrying me is not trying to make a more aggressive play earlier with Roaring Moon and not trying to force the Heatran here with the Stealth Rocks. As I said earlier, with that Hydro Pump, which was expected. I mean, if they hit the Hydro Pump, we are losing the Heatran. So are the Stealth Rocks worth it at this point? Unfortunately, I think so. I think you do need to get rid of this thing to get those rocks up. It's just been a little bit of a switcheroo back and forth. Now,
well, good news, you might not think it looking at Dragalge, but it's extremely slow.
Yes.
So if you do decide that Stealth Rocks are the priority, you're guaranteed to get it.
Yep.
And, maybe you get a Hydro Pump miss. If it's not 100% accurate, it's 50% accurate. But I'm with you. I think regardless, you almost have to go for the Stealth Rocks just to have them up and put yourselves in a position where you can counter all that damage you're getting every time you switch in. We're talking about the Regenerator on the other side as we watch Tornadus T switch in and out and it's regaining health. We're losing so much because of those spikes that we need some kind of counter to it, it feels like.
Which, hey, it's like shoe on the other foot. We've had a lot of strategies of getting hazards up. The opponent has played a fantastic game. I don't think Ben has had an opportunity to get Heatran in to get the rocks up. I don't say anything as if like, if back in my day, Heatran would have been in turn 2 with rocks. I
would have led with Stealth Rocks.
I would have stared Urshifu in the face, and I wouldn't have flinched. No, that was a big part of that aggressive start with the Urshifu, really preventing us from getting those hazards up. So, unfortunately, sacrificing Heatran was the best time to get the rocks up, And it does allow us to bring in Roaring Moon, which should just grab a kill here. So ultimately a trade that I am in favor of, but I am really worried about the spikes here. Now, they're not going to let Dragalge go down, unfortunately. But we still have a Scarfer. We still have Roaring Moon. We still have Kilowattrel. We absolutely have ways to win this battle, but it is going to be unbelievably important to manage our bulky Pokemon properly with the spikes and with the threats on the other side.
Well, we pretty much know what's going to happen here. They need to switch. The obvious candidate is the Sandy Cheeks. Just sacrifice it here. I don't think it has too much left to offer at this point, especially with the poison. It's not just weak, but it's got that going as well.
Yeah.
I'm super interested to see where it goes from there. If they pull the trigger on the Skeledirge, if it's Terra starter time, what happens after this turn is when we really see this match kick into gear.
Yeah, I really expect the Skeledirge after this. The really unfortunate thing is to bring Roaring Moon in, we had to sacrifice, a full health Pokemon that in theory could have done other things in the battle, and they're able to sacrifice a Pokemon that's really done everything it needed to do. It was really nice pivoting in early game, got those spikes up, which is a huge issue. So really an uneven trade. And if this does allow the old Gator to come in and become a fairy, we're in a tough spot because we lost our Heatran, which would have been a really good switch in. So I don't think these next few turns will go our way, and I'm very interested to see how the comeback kid responds. Now, Tyler, I'm parched. I'm not in the swamp. It's very hot around here. I'm gonna need you to say some sweet nothings.
Well, I didn't know for sure if they would go Skeledirge, because they do have Gardevoir still in their back pocket as well. I figured Skeledirge would be the play. That's why I wanted to see if they went ahead and brought Skeledirge in, because with it in, unless it's a hard bluff, you're forced into that Fairy Terra to get that out of the way. So we know for sure the rest of the way it's there. Both Terras are on the board. Now, if you're Ben, you have to switch. You're not going to be able to take anything from that Skeledirge, especially because you're locked in with the Choice Band to the Crunch. Now's when it gets spicy. You knew this was going to happen. There was going to be a point in this battle where these two Pokemon were going to be on the field, tear it up. How Ben handles this determines how this match is going to play out. And I think this is the right play, considering, again, unless just a super hard read on the other side, knowing that you're putting the pressure on for the switch, this feels like the right switch in for Ben here.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I guess I'm a little bit more curious of what Slitherwing is going to do for the rest of the game, and I was hoping to see the Slitherwing there. Now, if that prediction had worked, that really nice aggressive play, which you have been asking for early on, that was something that you wanted to see. If that had worked out, this is a completely different battle right now, and I don't actually know what Slitherwing is useful for the rest of the battle, so I might be talking out of my butt. That's completely fine and fair.
Well, and what a read from the opponent to go for Earth Power there and claim the Glamora, because I expected, if not, the obvious fairy move to guarantee you take out the Roaring Moon. I thought we'd see a Torch Song. And if the switch is coming, you get a free chance to set up and boost that special attack. But instead, the hard read and the kill. Our opponents played a really, really good match so far.
Yeah, that was a really, really fantastic play. I do love the aggressive play on Ben's part. It was a big, hey, risk it for the biscuit, and he didn't get the biscuit. He didn't do it, Tyler. It was a little upsetting to see. And now on that back foot, Monroe, interesting. Okay, I would have thought that's the easiest Dragalge I've ever seen in my life. Oh no, actually, never mind. It didn't really matter. Wait, yeah. Wait. Oh, okay. My brain short circuited. Went beep boop bop beep boop bop a beep boop. Please take over. I need to reset myself.
There was an opening. It shut. There was an opening again, and it went away. I'm not happy with how things went. I'm intrigued if the reason for the switch. I wonder if there's a choice specs on the other side. If the Skeledirge is locked in, or it was just a safe play to keep as much health on what is, probably your winner as possible. But such an unfortunate miss, which is, it's the gamble when you run a move like Hurricane. You know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah, now that I'm back, I buttoned up, unbuttoned. I feel like I'm ready to go. Unfortunate play. Ben made a big prediction. The opponent made a bigger prediction. Ben made a bigger prediction as the opponent made a prediction, and he just missed. It's a really unfortunate thing. Opponent definitely expected an electric move. Went for the Hurricane. Everything there was perfect. But this is something I'm going to have to ask Ben about. I hate that.
Oh, no.
That's not great. Slitherwing is not the greatest Pokemon to deal with a Gardevoir, and I really would have loved to see this come in on the Skeledirge. Because if we had the old rock guy doing rock poison things, it's going to threaten this a little bit more.
We feel a little better about this.
Now, I am thinking about it a little bit more. Obviously, they do have the old Dragalge, and that can wall us pretty well, but the milk was spilled. That Hurricane was a horrible, horrible, horrible miss. And we're just kind of in a bad spot because of that, no fault on Ben's side. Unless he, was going to use a move that wouldn't miss. A lot of people like to throw that out there, even if there's not really a better choice. You kind of live or die by the Hurricane, unless Kilowattrel wants to learn Bleak Wind Storm.
It'd be lovely if it could.
Now, this right here is a really good play on Ben's part. The miss was very unfortunate, but was able to get this thing in and, should guarantee a kill. Now we're on the aggressive. We're down in the numbers, going for the dragon move on the Gardevoir, which I absolutely love. Oh, steel?
The Iron Head.
Oh, I thought I saw Dragon Claw. That makes more sense. Yeah,
It's there in case of the Skeledirge switch.
Oh, I'm not. I'm not questioning that.
Are you questioning your ability to read?
Yes, that is. Yeah, no,
okay.
I thought I saw Dragon.
Yeah, because I trust your Pokemon knowledge more than your ability to read. Let's be honest.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've spent enough time learning this game that I understand why Ironhead was there. I thought I saw Dragon Claw. I thought he was making just a ridiculous read.
I mean, it would have been nuts if it worked out.
Yeah, I thought
I am glad
yeah.
in retrospect that it was not Dragon Claw.
No, that would have been insane. No, that I thought.
But yeah. I liked how loyal team owner you stepped in, and even if it was Dragon Claw, you were there for it.
Let me just
100%. That's my guy. He's nailed this read. It's gonna work.
Hey,
for some reason, it's going into Urshifu. It's gonna be a huge hit.
I was exposed there a little bit of like, you know what? Let me spin this. I thought, hey, you got to ride for your guy.
We've learned to trust Ben through thick and thin.
I learned to trust that man a long time ago in Draft League, and it was a really, really good position to put himself to get a kill after everything that happened there. Now, the really unfortunate thing here is because this thing is choice banded, it had to be, well, it didn't have to be, but it made more sense to be choice locked in this week. Can't really be set up against the Skeledirge. It does allow Urshifu to come in. He has been worried about setup Urshifu. That's something that he told us, before the old pregame. So it's something that's on my mind. If Ben says this thing is going to dance with swords, I expect him to dance. Now, I'm a little thrown off. I've already made a few blunders. I thought he clicked a Dragon Claw. Tyler, I'm going to need you to take the reins. I'm a little nervous. I'm going to lean back in the chair and just watch this unfold. Watch the comeback happen.
Well, if there's anybody to start a comeback with, it's Bubby. And I'm just excited because this feels like the first real chance to bring Bubby into the match. And if I'm the opponent, I'm shaking my boots, quivering. Because this is our guy. This is the moment that everything in this match is built towards. Spike's hurt a lot. We knew that it had the acrobatics. What happens here? Does it stay in? Does it try to hit Bubby again? Do they switch? Do we see an aggressive play from Ben? Does Ben try to read the switch? Does he go for a grass move here?
Lounging in a suit is not very comfortable, so I am back in business. Now,
I need your help. What's Bubby gonna do?
Nothing. An unfortunate thing here is, as much as I love Bubby, the number one thing standing in between us and winning is Dragalge. We can't do anything to Dragalge. Now, if Dragalge comes in, it would have been a fantastic Dragon Tail, but he didn't go for Dragon Tail, didn't bring in the Dragalge. It really wasn't ever an option, you know, and that's obviously why our coach didn't do that. But Tornadus is, it's not an ideal middle ground. Now, Dragon Tail could have been nice there, but, you know, you Dragon Tail on this, maybe Dragalge comes in and now we're in a bad spot. You know, maybe they bring in the Gardevoir. You obviously, actually, that thing's dead. Like, you know, if it brings in the Dragalge, that wouldn't be great. They bring in the Skeledirge, that's not going to be great. Bubby's best chance was to the Giga Drain and somehow catch the Urshifu looking the other way. At this point, the game's not over, but it's almost impossible for us to break through, once again, the Dragalge.
We really need a mistake from the other side.
Yeah.
And they have played almost a perfect match.
And that's why I don't mind the Giga Drain with Bubby. As you know, that was the mistake they were hoping for, and this is actually a mistake on the opponent, I believe. You know, Ben made the play. He made the switch into the Slither Wing. I'm falling apart here, big guy. Brings in the Slither Wing. Now, if he had brought in Roaring Moon, I would be jumping up for joy. I think that was probably a little bit too aggressive, but we do outspeed this thing. And, I mean, we have a pretty good chance to get some big damage on something. Now, the unfortunate thing that we've noticed for this entire game is just the ability of the opponent to just make these pretty safe switch-ins. If we go for Earthquake and they bring Tornadus T, I might shed a tear. You know, if we go for U-turn here and they stay in, I may shed a tear. There's not a lot of great things that could happen here beyond our coach going crazy and out-predicting an opponent that has gone, you know, toe-to-toe with Ben. Props to the opponent on the other side. I really think both coaches have played a really, really good game. I think it's been a really, really tough matchup so far. And thankfully, Ben made the correct call here. Oh, I can read again. You know what? I'm just gonna sit on the ground for a second. I thought I saw him click U-turn. I thought I'm gonna sit on the ground. I don't think I deserve to sit here.
It would have felt really good if he clicked U-turn. It just pains me every time that I watch this Tornadus T come into the battle.
Yeah.
And it has more HP than it did the last time it left, because it feels like we're getting so close to chipping away. And maybe that should have been the indicator. I understand why Ben did what he did. You've got to be aggressive there, especially in the position that we were in. But anytime there's been a chance to make the switch or just the cautious play, it feels weird to say because the opponent has done a good job of going on the offensive when they've needed to. But when the cautious play has been the right play, they've made the cautious play. So there might have been reason to suspect there was going to be a switch, and to do what you said and to go with the U-turn and just try to get some kind of momentum late in this match. But it's just tough because every switch you make, you know those 2 layers or spikes there. So whatever switches you're going for, you've got to be careful because you've got a very limited number that you can even make over the course of these final few turns.
Yeah, you know, this hasn't been the best showing for Play More from the old John guy, me, or from the coach. Now, I think the really promising thing is I sit on the floor in my imposed timeout. I think Ben's played a much better game than I've commentated recently. And forget commentating, reading. I'm struggling to read right now. Because of spikes, I think Ben is playing the correct end game. It's not working out, but he doesn't have any options. We can't win with Dragalge on the other side. You have to get the opponent to mess up. And we don't have the ability to take out Tornadus T without it being Kilowattrel or Roaring Moon. It's why I really, really wish we had saw a little bit more aggressive of a play with the Roaring Moon early in the game against that Tornadus T. But I'm pretty confident Ben had a reason to not do that. It's just unfortunate because we don't have any way, and I mean any way, to take out this Dragalge beyond the opponent pulling a John, as the kids have started saying. Now I'm going to get back in my seat. Hopefully I can read.
I've heard that you just instantly can gain that ability from sitting on the floor.
Yeah, it's actually it's a little bit of a hack, a life hack.
They don't know I know this hack. Lays down on the floor, learns to read.
Yeah. Now I don't know what it's been. I keep seeing the man hover over a move, and I think he's clicked it. And I've never had this. We've commentated a lot of games. I've never had this issue, and it's happened twice. So you know what? A little bit of a bounce back week next week as we go against the top team in the league. Now, obviously, the game is not over here. But, again, it really comes down to the opponents making outrageously bad blunders. Now, something that could be crazy. Could be really crazy. The opponent sits on the floor like me, right?
Okay.
Stay with me. Sits on the floor. Listening. What are they doing? Jay, why are you on the floor? They forget how Pokemon works. Ben goes for a crazy move. He goes for Dragon Claw, like I thought he was going to on the Gardevoir. I didn't understand the play, but I was going with it. But this time it makes sense because Jay, he keeps in the Dragalge. He's like, he's going to go for Iron Head. He's going to make a prediction. Okay, that didn't happen. Never mind. Yeah, it shouldn't have happened. No, this was his only play. You got to switch. You win every single time you switch.
Yeah, I think the only option there for Ben, and I don't know.
What's the Dragon Claw?
Well, it's not the worst. It's not a good option. It's not the worst one. But there's just anticipating the switch. Dragon Claw was really the only way to anticipate the switch. But you would have to guess that he's not going to switch to one of his fairy types. And with the way that our opponent has been switching, you just kind of it's almost, I'm sure, intimidating on the other side of, man, whatever I do, it feels like they're a step ahead. And John, you've played sports, I've played sports, you know it. It's not even a sports thing, it's a gaming thing too. Yeah. When you're going up against somebody and it just feels like they're always one step ahead of you, it hurts your confidence to where maybe you don't want to make those bold plays. You don't want to make moves that normally you would, just because in the back of your mind it's like, well, even if I go for it, they're going to predict it and it's not going to work out.
Yeah, that's a little salt in the wound right there. Obviously, at this point, that's lights out for the old team. And you know what? I think Ben can leave this battle his head held up high, as I think he's played a really, really, really good game. He made a lot of incredible plays. You know, obviously the Glamora play didn't work out. It was a really good risk. You know, it was a good risk to take, right? It's not always going to work out. There's been a few plays in this season where he's made that big play, and it has worked out in our favor. Not everyone is going to work, and, you know, I actually think this game was a lot closer than it seems, as I really feel like we were a Dragalge away from taking this thing. Now, I don't know how easy it would have been to get rid of that thing, but, you know, I think there's some things we can learn from this battle. This is an opponent we may see in the playoffs, as they're doing quite well this season. We've done quite well. I think things would have to go horribly awry to not make it into the playoffs, but next week's a big week. This was a little bit of a humbling week on the road. So you know what? Let's talk to the coach and see what he's thinking.
We are very happy to be joined by our esteemed head coach, who's back down on the field with the team after being up in the booth last week. The one and only Ben Earl. Ben, it's a tough week for Playmore. The winning streak comes to an end. So I've got to ask, fresh out of the battle, what are your overall thoughts on the matchup we had this week?
I mean, it's tough for me to be too upset at myself. Our opponent played perfect, and that's really all it came down to. Like, big props to Jay, first off. And second off, I could have just... It was tough after the team I brought because Spikes and his pivots just outdid my U-turn momentum early on. Big thing, as you can notice, my U-turn Pokemon were Slitherwing and Kilowattrel mainly. And between leftovers on the Sandy Shocks and the Regenerator on Tornadus T, I was making no progress early on in the battle, but once he got Spikes up, he was able to get momentum. He had all the progress, and he snowballed that with some amazing calls on his part. So it was just really tough to come back from that. He played very aggressive in really good ways, and I mean, the only out I had later on was just getting really lucky with hurricanes and potential confusions. So it was an uphill battle for sure. It's not, once again, one that I'm going to be too upset about. because I feel like in a rematch, I can learn from this greatly if it were to come to that in playoffs, and we can pick up the dub from there. But I mean, all streaks come to an end. It's not what I'm sweating over at the end of the day, even though I cried a little bit.
I missed you in the booth, Ben. I was having a tough time as things weren't going well on the field. I was collapsing up there. But before I had my own meltdown, just missing you in general, I did notice something that really stuck out to me, and it was Roaring Moon being brought in aggressively on the Tornadoes T and then immediately switching out. To me, it felt like that was the perfect opportunity to possibly get a kill, and it felt like that's what you were kind of posturing towards. So I was really curious of why you brought it in and switched it out. What was going through your mind at that point?
Yeah. So I really had my angel and devil fighting right there. The aggressy on one shoulder and the smart play on the other shoulder. And I was just getting really frustrated, and I kind of wanted to get a kill with Roaring Moon, Terra Dark Crunch. But the fact is, I also didn't want Roaring Moon to lose majority of his health, especially since there was already one spike on the field that I couldn't get rid of. Torn T never would have killed with anything, not even Focus Blast, if he did choose to select it and land it. But it's just something where I was like, I don't think this is the right play anymore. I should have went Kilowattrel, and then I backed out of it. And in hindsight, yeah, I probably should have stayed in, because having Roaring Moon being the second fast Pokemon once Torn was gone would have been pretty huge. Yeah, it would have changed a few things in the long run. But truthfully, I feel like it was just very difficult still to break through, just because that Skeledirge for that Roaring Moon, and even a little bit of the Urshifu Rapid Strike, just made it very difficult. If anything, I needed to reevaluate what Roaring Moon was going to do this match, in all honesty.
So normally, Ben, after a loss, this is where I would ask you where the team goes from here, but we know exactly where the team goes from here, and that's straight towards a matchup with the top team in the league. So going into what is by default the biggest matchup of the season, how do you prep to come out and get things back on track after the winning streak has come to an end?
Well, first off, since we had a winning streak, keyword there, I wouldn't say normally after a loss. Calm down, Tyler. And going into the matchup, I'm not going to stress too much about it. If anything, I am more focused on playoffs and when we can possibly face Uzi there. He's the number one team in the league for sure, and that's why I respect and expect him in playoffs.